Central. It's a fairly unique station, at least on the New South Wales rail network. It's by far the largest station in terms of size, but it also serves as the heart of the railway network. Since it opened in 1906, it's dutifully fulfilled that role, and over the past decades, it's been modified to cope with how Sydney has changed. With the eastern platforms being converted for the City Circle in 1926, the addition of the Eastern Suburbs line in 1979, and the recent opening of Sydney Metro City in 2024. However, over the next few decades, we'll see it continue to evolve to meet the demands of a growing Sydney. But a station is not just a collection of railway platforms, it's the transport interchange it connects to and the precincts surrounding it. And Central, and the area around it, is set to transform massively. So the first thing I want to talk about is everyone's favourite car park. Do you guys like derelict 1960s car parking structures? I hope not. So for some context, in the original Bradford plan, the lines into the city would dive underground before Goulburn Street, as they do today. But the idea was always to build a new headquarters for the railways above the portals. Not only because it was a valuable way to use the airspace above it, but also because it just looked nice. However, the Depression and then the war got in the way, and in the end, it wasn't built. So the site sat empty until the 1960s got a hold of it and put up the world's most beautiful car park. Yeah, this thing's bloody ugly, and today it's a derelict waste of space that could very much be better used. But there is good news. The car park is currently owned by the state government, but it is leased to the City of Sydney, and the current Deputy Lord Mayor, Zan Maxwell, has taken it as a personal vendetta to actually do something with the site. The proposal is that the City of Sydney would be bought out of its lease on the condition that the government redevelop the site for housing. Further, they're even willing to sell their lease for a lower amount if the site is actually used for affordable housing. For transparency's sake, the idea of this video came from a personal discussion I had with Zan in March 2025, who wanted to get more attention on this project. But it's also important to note that I wouldn't be making this video if I didn't agree. I think it's a fantastic idea. The CBD desperately needs more affordable housing, and the Goulburn Street car park is a prime opportunity to turn something that detracts from the character of the CBD into something that actually adds to it. More broadly, the City of Sydney has big plans for the CBD, and at some point I really do need to discuss them. As it relates to Central, outside of the Goulburn Street car park, is a complete redoing of Railway Square and other associated areas. I'm sure most of you have been there, and it really doesn't hold up. It's dirty, dilapidated, and it's just not suitable for the needs of modern Sydney. Thankfully, the current future plan for the precinct looks pretty solid, with new paving, trees, and more space dedicated to pedestrians. This isn't really new for the City of Sydney. Since the mid-2000s, they've been doing a lot to improve the CBD. In 2007, the report Public Spaces and Public Life was published, which was commissioned from the quite famous urban designer Jan Gehl, and included some of the recent projects that have been quite well received. Most notably, the George Street Light Rail and pedestrianization. I'll more than likely do a video talking about this at some point, because I think it's a fascinating topic. But before I move on, I want to talk about a few areas where I think the City of Sydney's plans could go further. One is regarding Eddy Avenue. Their plan is effectively to leave it be, but I think it could be pedestrianised. On page 33 of this document, which if you don't know, is a plan to do with what it says on the tin, put a square in front of Town Hall. The three principles I think could be used to help Eddy Avenue are tree alignment, activation, and framing. Central is a beautiful building in front of a beautiful park, but it doesn't really feel connected to it. You need to cross a busy road to get there, and when you're in the park, you can't really see the station. So here's my radical proposal. Close Eddy Avenue to traffic and remove these two trees in Belmore Park. Radical, I suppose, but closing Eddy Avenue would significantly improve connectivity between Central and Belmore Park, which would make business in the tunnel far more viable. At the same time, removing those two trees would help to frame Central more, making it a more dominant part of the surrounding area. I do understand that Eddy Avenue is quite a large bus terminal and busy road. However, it's not a major crosstown road, and there are other locations nearby that buses could be directed to. At least in my opinion, its benefit as a pedestrian area would be greater than if it were to remain as a road. But, like I said, I know that's a bit radical, And at this time, there is no plan for that. But moving on, let's discuss someone else's radical proposal. If you're around Sydney Urbanist Twitter before that died for some unknown reason, you may be aware of the plan to cap the terminal platforms as central with several high-rises and a mix of residential, commercial and office spaces. This proposal is by far the most radical and will be the biggest change the station has seen since the 1926 opening of the city circle. As you can probably guess, it was quite contentious, and personally, I have mixed feelings. On one hand, I recognise that as a location, this is probably the best spot for any new large-scale mixed-use development, and considering the government's strategy of trying to turn the area around Central into an innovation precinct, it makes sense. It's right on top of a major transport node and located in close proximity to the University of Sydney and UTS. Further, the proposed amount of green space in the renders is sorely needed near Central Station and in the inner city. But, on the other hand, we need to think about the experience of travellers. One of the biggest architectural tragedies of the 20th century was the demolition of New York's Penn Station. One entered the city like a god, now one scuttles in like a rat, as the quote goes. While capping the terminal platforms would provide valuable development land, it would also effectively put them underground. One of the positive qualities of Central is that when you step off the train, you can see the skyline, you can see the city you've arrived in, and capping the station would lose that. This is even ignoring the detrimental effect this would have on the station's heritage values, but it's up in the air anyway. You may have noticed I referred to this proposal in the past tense, as for now, it has been cancelled. Personally, I think it's bad. I think it should go ahead, just maybe in a different form. Maybe the suburban platforms should be capped instead, and the area above the Devonshire Street Tunnel. This would have the benefit of still providing light and views to the terminal platforms below, while having a less impact on the heritage values of the site and hiding some of the uglier parts of Central. But that really is just my take. If you have one too, I'd genuinely be curious. In my opinion, Central has a lot of opportunities, and I do look forward to seeing how it and the area around it evolves over the next 120 years. Probably not going to live that long, but I can imagine. So with that, this video does come to a close. Before I go, I have a few things I want to cover. Do you reckon it still looks like I'm filming this 4 months later if I wear the exact same clothes? Probably not. This shirt is falling apart. So yeah, I'm re-recording this end bit because a lot's changed. It's been quite a while since I've posted it all, and I thought best to give some updates while I'm here. But before all that, I first want to give quick thanks to the two groups who helped make this video possible. First and foremost was Zan Maxwell and the City of Sydney, who basically asked me in, I believe, March to make a video talking about the Golden Street car park. And they were very generous. They gave me all the leeway I could have wanted. They didn't demand anything. They let me do whatever I want, really, as long as I talk about the car park. They've been more than helpful with resources. And it is also quite funny because I said this video would be out in August. Oh, the flag's coming down. Even the flag's disappointed in me. But yeah, I said this video would be out in August. It is definitely not August at the moment. It is very, very hot because of that. The other group I also want to thank are my Ko-fi supporters who have been more than generous than I deserve, considering I've posted nothing in the last 4 months. So the people who have supported me monthly all throughout 2025 include Aaron Slater, Axe Walia, Albert 3801, Building Beautifully, Chris Topher, CK, Daniel, Ian Wright, John Owie, Luke Norris, Melee, my parents, Peter, Samantha, Skipperoo, Tassa Dionysus, Transportus, and Z. And I'm aware that a lot of those people stuck around only for a little bit. A lot of them have stuck around the entire time, but regardless, I still appreciate the support. And I also want to add that a lot of people give just one-time donations. I also greatly appreciate those as well. But yeah, the main reason I'm re-recording this is because I wanted to talk about where I've necessarily been. The long story short is I was working full-time and studying full-time and working on my master's at that. And surprisingly, working full-time, studying full-time, and trying to do YouTube on top of that, it's just not feasible. And at the end of the day, I had to focus on both my career and also my degree. But also in saying that, I do have a lot more experience. I know a lot more about planning now. I also have 4 scripts that are ready to go. So early next year, it shouldn't be too long of a wait for another video. And also really big plans for next year. So hopefully it shouldn't be too much longer for another video. And also I guess one final thanks to Rice, who is the one who's editing this video and puts up with me being useless occasionally and also spamming them with random comments. They're also the one who sent me the flag, which I absolutely love. I get so many funny comments about that flag. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say. So I'll see you guys next time.